of awe, wonder, and yet no fear. They are being drawn to something they trust. It's a challenge to try to express in a concrete form something as personal, as intangible as holiness. I think part of holiness is a sense of vulnerability, of total trust. And what better way to see that kind of trust than in an infant? On a piece of art of this scale, you try to work out as many details as possible in the early stages, in this case in a 1/6 scale model.
Even in the early sketches, the challenge was how to integrate the universal call into the overall design of its final home, the rear wall of one of the largest churches in the world, the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. The shrine has been designated a basilica. A basilica was a rectangular building used for civic purposes. Today, the Vatican reserves the title basilica to recognize a church of special significance. With its Romanesque, Byzantine architecture, the shrine is a uniquely American church that overlooks the nation's capital. The designs draw from the earliest roots of Christian architecture.
Romanesque and Byzantine. To me, at first, that seems an odd combination. Romanesque from the Middle Ages in Central Europe and Italy, and Byzantine from the East. The great monuments of the East in Ravenna, Italy, or what is now Istanbul. And yet the marriage comes off pretty well here. In the United States, there's a certain freedom to put things together from different historical periods. You don't get that so much in Europe. I mean, this is really an American phenomenon to put these styles together in such a way. And it's quite successful at that, I think.
Inside the shrine, there are many Byzantine details visible in the art. Much of the art depicts Mary, the Mother of Christ, in marble and mosaics, as she is imaged by cultures around the world.
The shrine in Washington, D.C. is dedicated to Mary and appropriately has many, many, many images of Mary. We see icons of Mary with the Christ child, Mary in mosaics, and we also see sculptural reliefs of Mary. And despite all of this, in the main apse above the altar, we do not see Mary. We see Christ in majesty. And this also would have been a very common feature in the Byzantine world, to have churches actually dedicated to Mary, but above the altar, it is the area where Christ is the one who is sacrificed. And so then the image is Christ above the altar.
Christ the light.
The Christ in majesty at the shrine is truly American Byzantine, and I mean that in the fullest nature of that oxymoron. We see Christ in the apse as the Pantocrator, the ruler of the world and the cosmos, a very common feature of Byzantine apses. We see him as the judge of the world sitting on a rainbow that comes straight from the book of Revelation, from the Apocalypse. But we also see that are not so Byzantine. First of all, his hand gestures. It's very, very unique to see Byzantine Christ with his hands showing the stigmata in this way in a Byzantine apse, it very, very rarely appears, if at all. And what that signifies is the humanity of Christ, showing the wounds that he was in fact incarnate. He was human. Also at the shrine, the figure of Christ has an anatomy that is fully muscular. And this is also very unusual for the Byzantine world. And I think it's appropriate that we are not speaking to a Byzantine audience because that Byzantine audience doesn't exist anymore.
The image of Christ in Majesty is made from 3 million pieces of Venetian glass. It is one of the largest mosaics in the world. Along with other works here, it recalls a time when Byzantine artists used marble and mosaics to bring to life the stories of their faith. Historian Robert Byron wrote, "Of all the preceding European cultures, Byzantine represented phenomena, which in our time has come to underlie all artistic expression." In the town of Ravenna, on Italy's northeast coast, is the Basilica of San Vitale. It was built by Emperor Justinian in the 6th century to celebrate his reconquest of Italy. The interior of San Vitale offers one of the best remembrances of early Byzantine art. The ceiling and walls are adorned with frescoes dating from the Italian Renaissance. But the altar area remains a picture book of Byzantine mosaics that sparkle as brightly now as they did when they were created more than 14 centuries ago.
Everything we see in Ravenna now, all these magnificent, very, very, from between, let's say, 450 and 600.
In 402, the Roman Emperor Honorius, he was Galla Placidia's brother, moved to Ravenna, the seat of the capital of the Roman Empire. And so the art developed here enormously because all the main artists of that time were all invited to Ravenna, and they embellished all the public buildings. The whole decoration of one church is almost like a Biblia Pauperum, which means a Bible for everybody. We have to think that people at that time could not read, and so they learn everything about the religion looking at the descriptions of the scene which were represented then in the churches. But it's really like an illustrated book.
The Byzantines were a very different sort of people to the ancient Greeks, and I think this can only really be attributed to the fact that they had become Christian, and Christianity totally transformed. They stopped, on the whole, being writers. They stopped being dramatists almost completely. What does happen, to a far greater degree than it ever happened in the ancient world, is this extraordinary explosion of painting, mosaic, and the visual arts, which after the 4th or 5th century were virtually exclusively religious. And Byzantine artists were always told that their job was to represent the Spirit of God, which is a tough assignment for any artist. And the extraordinary thing is how often they manage to do it, it seems to me.
According to the, let's say, religious or philosophical meaning of the Byzantine art, our world is considered to be an illusion. They mean that the real, the only world, is always represented behind the golden background. This is acting almost like a barrier, like a curtain between our world, which is an illusion, and the real world, which is behind it, but our eyes can't see behind.
The Byzantine world is based obviously in Christianity, and Christianity in a way comes from two roots, from the pagan world, the Roman Empire, and from the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. So we see as Christian art develops, it has to make certain choices about the ancient world and whether or not it's going to appropriate and take with it certain ancient elements both in the religion and in the art, or whether it's going to turn its back on it and actually carve out a new path.
Although San Vitale is obviously the most important building, the most important monument in Ravenna, my own personal favorite is the mausoleum of Gara Placidia.